From the Sony Spider-Man universe that brought us things like Venom and Morbius comes perhaps an even worse movie than any of them, Madam Web. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my review for Madam Web. This is in theaters now and probably not for long, based on the horrible reception, both from critics and audiences, and the terrible box office take on opening weekend. So I had to rush out and see this for myself. Is it as bad as people are saying? I think it's currently at 13% with critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience at 51%. That is terrible. Audiences love everything. Even really bad movies usually have at least like a 65% with audiences. No, not Madam Web. And this is from the Sony studios that are really trying to hold on to their Spider-Man properties because, of course, it's too long to talk about here, but, they've basically kind of merged the character of Spider-Man with the Marvel Universe with Disney. So they have sort of a joint stake in all of the Spider-Man movies that are part of the MCU. But then there's these whole other offshoots because they're really trying to milk this Spider-Man universe for everything that it's worth. So you have these movies that have really nothing to do with Spider-Man, at least this one has webs in it or whatever. But, you've got Venom, you've got Morbius, which was obviously, a hugely memed joke of a movie. I think this one actually might even be worse. So before we launch into the specifics here of Madam Web, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here on the channel, and just about every day something new goes up. There's always a lot to check out here, so please consider subscribing. Hit that like button down below. Comment too. Did you see this movie? What are your thoughts on Madam Web? And do you have any interest in seeing this movie? I'm going to post a link as well at the end of this video, after I give my grade here, to my Morbius review as well, so you can kind of compare it and contrast. All right, so generally, this movie is about this character, Madam Web, who is a part of the Spider-Man comics universe, and she's played here by Dakota Johnson, and basically she is an EMT who's been in foster care her whole life. Her mother died while giving birth in the Amazon, and there's a whole backstory with that we kind of learn along the way. And so in this movie, she is confronting her past. Her name is Cassie Webb, and she's confronting her past while trying to also save three young girls, and save their lives basically from this villain named Ezekiel Sims, played by Tahar Rahim. As the three young girls, you have Sydney Sweeney, who of course we know from many things, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabella Merced, and then also in supporting roles here, Mike Epps, Adam Scott, and Emma Roberts. So this movie comes from the same screenwriting team as Morbius. I don't know why. I mean, maybe this was already in the works, I guess, when Morbius was released, but I'm not sure why Sony, saw the returns from Morbius and said, let's get those guys. So I dug a little bit into their history as screenwriters. Their names are Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. They have written some of the absolute worst movies of the last, 10 years, including Dracula Untold, Gods of Egypt, and The Last Witch Hunter, and now Morbius and Madam Web. None of these movies I think I gave more than a D+, maybe C-, but Gods of Egypt was terrible. Dracula Untold, I think I gave a D. These are not good movies. So why do we keep going back to this screenwriting duo? It's not for them. Find another career path, please. And then this was directed by S.J. Clarkson in her first feature debut as a director. Usually she is directing TV shows, and mostly in England. So I was completely unfamiliar with her, but this is her feature film debut, and boy, not a great start. So boy, there's so much to say about this movie. Nothing about it works. I'll just start there. The script is pretty bad, and I will say it seems like Adam Scott and Dakota Johnson are sort of trying to make this work. Adam Scott works with the Webb character, Celeste Webb, or whatever the hell her name is, as an EMT. So the two of them are work buddies, and the first couple of scenes after we find out what's going on in the Amazon in the 70s, where her mom's giving birth to her, we jump to 2003. And my God, they'll remind you that you're in 2003 every 5 minutes in this movie. They're passing Blockbuster. Here's Britney Spears' hot new hit, Toxic. We hear the DJ say. There is a horribly CGI billboard for the new Beyonce album. There's multiple references to American Idol, which, of course, was, the hot first season was in 2003. So they're really nailing you over the head with the references there. Okay, we got it. Thanks for that. But we see them as EMTs, and their camaraderie is the one thing maybe that kind of works in this movie. But he's very much a side character after about 15 minutes. Adam Scott is. So it's sort of irrelevant to the rest of the film. I mean, he shows up again later, but again, it's a pretty small role overall. But they seem like they're trying to make this movie work. But it's so hard to tell because everything about it is such a mess. And I also, I like Dakota Johnson. She seems like a cool person to hang out with or whatever. Her movies are a little bit hit or miss for me. I certainly did not care for the last two of the 50 Shades of Grey movies. I think the first one's fine. But she kind of has disavowed those movies anyway, much like she's kind of doing now on the press tour for Madam Web. But I don't think action is the genre for her. I mean, it's hard to tell because the action sequences in this film are so lifeless that who could tell really if she would be a good action star, but she just seems to have too low-key of a persona to really sink her teeth into an action franchise. And God willing, this will not be a franchise, but I don't think the action genre suits her. And in a recent interview, she'd said she had never even watched one of the Marvel movies. She said she watched about 20 minutes of one once. So, she has no real knowledge of what these movies are supposed to be doing. Not that this movie does overall either, compared to even a pretty bad Marvel movie, this is so much worse still. When I think of the worst movies of the MCU, it's like the Eternals, the Thor movie that came out a couple years ago, Love and Thunder. There's a few bad ones in the mix, especially lately, but this is much worse than all of them. The editing is atrocious. It's all over the place. It's all these quick cuts where you genuinely don't know what's happening. And some of them are in action sequences, so you really don't know what's going on there. The effects are terrible. They look like they're straight out of a CW show, and I know they've done a lot with the DC universe, with the Arrowverse and stuff, but you expect sort of shoddy special effects on a TV show budget. Even now, really, I don't think a CW show has the budget even of like a Disney Plus Marvel show or something. But you'd think in a big budget movie like this that they would take some time to get some of the CGI right. It looks terrible. It looks so corny. And this movie, some people have been calling this movie it's soon to be a camp classic. The problem with that statement is, campy movies are fun. And for the most part, they attempt to kind of lean into that camp factor. Not all of them. Like The Room, obviously was trying to be a serious movie, but has turned into a camp classic. But I saw Lisa Frankenstein the other day, which I did a review for. And that to me is more like, okay, they're kind of leaning into the camp factor here. This movie, I really think, wants to be serious, and it has no idea how to go about doing so, because everything is so terrible. And then this part really was bizarre. So the villain has this horribly dubbed entire performance. Every scene he's in, his mouth sometimes doesn't match up to what he's saying. A lot of times they'll just cut away and have this badly sort of overdubbed audio of him speaking. It was so obviously done after the fact. Now, I know in movies a lot of times they will have that. It's called ADR, where they'll have the people go in. Either there's maybe too much background noise in the scene or whatever, and they'll have them sort of redub their lines. Okay, that's fine. But here, it's so glaringly apparent, and he sort of half mumbles through the movie. It's very, very bizarre. I've never seen anything like it on this big of a scale. It reminds me of those kung fu movies from the 70s that would be on in the afternoons when I was a kid, and the dubbing, it was an English dub, so it wasn't even in the same language as originally. And I read up a little bit on this, and it seems like they had some sort of other plot for this movie, or at least a portion of the plot, and then they abandoned it, but like after they filmed or something. I read a couple of different accounts, and so they had this guy just come in after the fact and kind of read his lines. But I mean, he's not, energetic at all in these line reads. And I know he's the villain. Is he supposed to be like, big and brooding and whatever? Maybe. But it didn't match up at all. It was so weird. It was laughable to see that in this big budget movie. So listen, overall, nothing worked about this movie. I think it's probably worse than Morbius overall. I would have to go back and watch Morbius to see if that's true, but I will never do that. So for now, we'll just say it's worse. But in any event, it's certainly the same grade as Morbius. I leave Madam Web with an F. See it in theaters while you can, because I don't think it will be there long. If you want to know, what the hubbub is all about, I guess, with how terrible it is. It's truly wretched. I can't imagine a worse movie coming out this year, but we'll see. All right, so thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time.